Last November, the COG board adopted a regional solar goal of 250,000 solar rooftops in the region by 2030. Today, our focus is going to be on discussing new opportunities for solar in our region. We also have an action item to adopt the fiscal year 25 work plan and budget. We have a last minute addition to the agenda. We have Carrie Ahern with Virginia Energy to talk about their Solar for All award. With Virginia Energy, assuming there are no objections, we're going to add about 10 minutes to the agenda item and extend the meeting till about noon. The first piece of committee business is to adopt the meeting summary from CEEPC's March meeting. Motions and seconds can be made verbally or in the chat box. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve?
You can do
I am not.
Approve. Stuart Adams, College Park.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I see Takis has made a motion.
I second, Madam Chair.
Great.
Approved.
Thanks so much. I'm having trouble seeing everything, but here I am. Now on to committee and member updates. First, we'll get an update on the BAC committee. Andy Young, the chair, will provide the update.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Ivy. My name's Andy Young. I'm the interim deputy city manager for the city of Falls Church, and I'm chair of the BAC. We had our last meeting on April 13th when we received a presentation on the draft FY25 work program and budget for the Regional Environment Fund. I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that this morning. And our main discussion topic was on capital investment planning and climate budgeting for clean energy and low carbon infrastructure projects. So local and state governments in our region are implementing their climate action plans and trying to select and prioritize their climate actions. The committee wanted to explore different ways to effectively use our limited budgets to meet emission reduction targets at the same time. We heard from Dr. Jan Whittington, director of the University of Washington's Urban Infrastructure Lab, and Laura Jay, regional director for North America at C40. Dr. Whittington discussed UIL's Climate Smart Capital Investment Planning Project, and how the tool is helping Montgomery County to quantitatively assess and improve racial equity and social justice impacts in the county's public projects. This includes adjustments to project designs to mitigate climate risks and enhance community resilience. Laura Jay with C40 discussed climate budgeting. Climate budget is a governance system that maintains climate commitments and considerations into decision-making on policies, actions, and budget by integrating climate targets from a city's climate action plan in the financial budget process, and assigns responsibility for implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting across the city government. This topic was of particular interest to BAC members as COG and ICLEI are launching the Metropolitan Washington Budget for Climate Action cohort. Not all local governments are able to participate in the cohort program at this time, so we look for C40 to provide some practical takeaways for us to use. Our next meeting is on June 20th, and I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Next, we'll hear from Chair Julie Kimmel from ECPAC. Can you share your update, please?
Chair Ivy, I'm Julie Kimmel, ACPAC Chair. I have 3 updates for you all today. First, ACPAC launched the 2024 Climate and Energy Leadership Awards program on Earth Day. The awards program began in 2014 as a way to highlight governments, NGOs, and educational institutions in the region that have implemented innovative climate stewardship projects and programs, particularly those that engage and serve the region's underserved communities. This year, we are awarding 2 jurisdictions in the government category. We'll award a small jurisdiction with a population of 90,000 people or less, and a large jurisdiction with a population of over 90,000. The NGO and educational institution categories will still have 1 award each. If you know of any climate stewardship projects and programs implemented by governments, NGOs, or educational institutions, please alert COG staff Leah Boggs to send them information about the programs. You also have promotional material in your packet. Please use it to publicize the program. Second, MWAC's EJ subcommittee kickoff meeting was held on May 2nd. There are 3 ACPAC members on the subcommittee, including me, Vice Chair William Washburn, and Reverend Jacqueline Norris. The EJ subcommittee was established to support MWAC's commitment to incorporate environmental justice and equity in its work program. The committee's mission is to develop policies and initiatives to support its members' environmental justice and equity programs. Bill and I passed along some experts in environmental justice and air quality to the subcommittee staff in hopes they will be consulted and even brought before the subcommittee at one of our meetings, and we're looking forward to some fruitful collaboration on this committee. You can get more details about the EJ subcommittee from COG staff Robert Christopher or Jeff King. And finally, ACPAC has developed a list of climate-related recommendations that we'd like this policy board to consider implementing. First and foremost, our goal is that COG treat climate change like the emergency that it is. I will highlight a few of the recommendations, but you should have the memo in your packet. We're asking that COG update regional greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets to be comparable to the most aggressive ones among its member jurisdictions. We're asking to adopt policies for promoting large-scale atmospheric greenhouse gas removal in addition to reducing emissions. And we're asking to give preference to climate solutions that offer co-benefits, such as alleviation of localized air pollution hotspots. ACPAC worked diligently on these recommendations and had a robust discussion to reach this final list. At our meeting on Monday, the members in attendance voted unanimously to advance them to this policy body. We have also developed a list of air-related recommendations for MWAC to consider, which I will present to them this afternoon. ACPAC asks that CEEPC seriously consider these recommendations. You can reach out to me directly for questions and discussion. Our next meeting is July 15th. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Julie. Do we have an update on our electric vehicle working group?
Madam Chair, there is a electric vehicle working group meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, well then we'll get an update next time.
Yes,
Is there-
go ahead.
Is there a Clean Cities update from Antoine Thompson?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me? I'm having some technical challenges
Yes, we
this
can
morning.
hear you
Okay.
perfectly.
Okay, took me like 10 minutes to get in this morning. First, let me say good morning. Just a couple quick things. The first is I want to thank everyone that came out to our display at Washington Nationals Park, and some of you sent some vehicles out there. Was held in honor of Earth Day last month, so that was really greatly appreciate a lot of different diverse vehicles. We're trying to do a couple things in displaying more vehicles and ride and drives throughout the region. If you want to collaborate with us on some of those, we look forward to that. And so we actually are kicking off in 2 weeks a coffee and EJ coffee and conversations around the region. Did I fade out?
You just froze for a half a second. That's all. I think it's fine.
Okay. All right. So we're doing some coffee and conversations at little coffee shops around the region. I'll try to make sure we circulate that schedule as we continue to build that. On June 20th, we're going to host a environmental energy and transportation justice summit at Howard University. So please, you can go to our website for that. It's June 20th in honor of Juneteenth. And so please look at attending our event. It should be very well attended. Also, I just wanted to mention as well that we are still looking for folks to sign the pledge. Many of you are offering workplace charging. So we have a form on our website. You go to gwrccc.org for that. We're still also have probably a good 75 plus opportunities for installing either level 2 or level 3 chargers throughout the region through our Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership. You can also visit our website for that as well. Oh, I forgot to mention last thing. On June 20th, at our Environmental Justice Summit, we will also release our Fleet Equity Guide. Many of you are electrifying your fleets, but we want to make sure equity is at the center of that. So we'll be releasing a Fleet Equity Guide at that. And so feel free to show up. Should be exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Antoine. And John Snar has an update for us from the Recycling Committee. John?
Yes, Madam Chair, and for John Johnson of the Recycling Committee, John Snar staff. Gonna attempt to share something here on the screen. So just say that we did have our meeting of the Recycling Committee last week on multifamily properties, specifically going out to disadvantaged and underserved and cultural populations that are hard to reach. I mean, this is kind of a difficult area of recycling. It's an area we could do a lot better at and really improve our numbers, but it's challenging. So we heard from Eco Maine in the state of Maine, doing a great job, got an EPA grant up there recently, as well as Montgomery County, who was doing an amazing program over in Maryland with this type of work. So I know a lot of our local governments want to do more, and so we're kind of learning from those folks. The main thing I want to talk about was a battery campaign, which some of you may remember, and I'll try and share this. I don't know if it'll work because we're talking about video here. But our battery management campaign, we first did last year in April. We did it again this year, bigger and better. It's really important to the solid waste sector and recycling because we get a lot of battery fires in the trucks, the recycling facilities, and the waste disposal facilities. It's typically lithium batteries, others rechargeables. So we really want to get the message out about not to put this in your trash and recycling and how to properly dispose of it and take it to different drop-offs in the area. So we have a whole campaign we built on that with $55,000 media buy. But to enhance that outreach, which is going on all this month, we did a press conference a couple weeks back. We did one last year, and this time we tried to go bigger and better. So I'm going to try and show a little bit of that. May not work great over a video, but we had John Johnson, our chair, who you see on the screen there from the Recycling Committee. We had Chief Ivan Browning, who is the battalion chief out in Montgomery County, narrating it for us and helping us stage it. And we had Fire Marshal Cobb of Arlington County. So we were working more jointly with the fire community this year. It's also a big problem for them, not just in the waste trucks and things, but also just in the homes. So we added to our spectacle not only a puncture of a battery and a trash fire to show how quickly it can spread to, say, a waste basket, but we added an e-bike. So we're simulating an overcharge of an e-bike and how dangerous that can be if left unattended with improper chargers, improper batteries and such. So I'm going to try and run this. We'll see how it goes here.
Practices. We not only protect those in the waste management industry, but also safeguard our homes from potential fire hazards.
You ready? All right, so he's going to operate the nail. It's going to puncture the cell. As you can see, instantaneously it vents flammable vapor and catches fire. So that's what happens with a single cell without any combustibles around it. So we're at about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Still showing some haywire with the temperatures in there.
Maya, is that coming through?
There you go. There it goes. So that's a cell venting. You saw the flame. You see the smoke production. That process is going to continue. That's another cell. So it's propagating from one cell to the next. We're in an outside environment, so you have that nice plume of smoke. If we were in a contained environment, like an apartment, a hallway, a stairwell, that could build up and you could have open flame in that area a lot easier than we are outside here in the open environment. We're going to continue. You see more.
Whoa.
Pretty explosive. Any combustibles that might be sitting next to it, that flame's going to hit it. It's going to ignite, and now we have a contents fire of what's ever around it, whether it's inside of a trash truck, a couch in a living room. You can see pieces fly. So we had a piece fly over there. We got some coming this way. Everybody should be in a safe spot. So you see the fire that went into thermal runaway. Now we have combustibles that caught fire in a second. Those are going to burn. They're going to extend to any other combustibles, any...
Okay, well, I hope folks were able to see that. I couldn't tell. Did that work okay, Maya?
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so anyway, we got good coverage on Fox 5 TV, 435, 3630, as well as WTOP radio and WTOP news clips online. So we were happy with that, and our campaign continues. I'll mention real quick, we're doing a Go Recycle campaign on just reducing waste in June, similar to this, but the theme is going to be reducing waste. That'll be about probably about $50,000 media buy. And our next meeting is on July 16th on enforcement. So that was a lot, but thanks for your time.
Thank you. That was pretty cool, John.
Hey,
Thanks.
John, there's a question in the chat for you.
Great.
And it says,
Okay,
are these battery fires occurring in new bikes with new market batteries or with refurbished and or recycled off-market batteries?
Okay, so for the bike question, the fire marshals and battalion fire chief Ivan Browning, he was stressing that 99% of your devices, whether it's bikes or anything else, are going to be safe. The problems often that they see are when you're using an aftermarket charger that does not come with the device, or if you replace the battery with something that's not really an approved manufacturer battery for that device or bike or what have you. And that's when they see the problem. It can happen, and what you were seeing there was an overcharge. So
Just got it bigger.
it's unfortunately something that can happen really quick, and so they don't advise charging your bike indoors, which may not be an option for some folks, but if you're going to do it, be there when it's happening. So don't go to sleep and with a charge inside, because there isn't a lot of warning when something like this happens. In fact, the battery pack itself will be cool to the touch until what you saw there happens.
Very cool. Well, if you're completed on that, that was certainly that was big. If we could have the tree canopy update.
And Brian Licator, do you know are you doing it? Is Michael available? You want me to do it?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Trying to get the video to work. It was working a minute ago. There it is. Okay. Can everybody see me? Hear me okay?
Yep. We can hear you.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to report. I don't have any video of things that are going to explode, so I'll just give you a heads up. It's not going to be as dramatic as John's.
Not as much fun. Sorry, Brian.
Not as much fun.
But I could pull up that tree fire for you, Brian.
Yeah, see if I can get a forest fire video for you. I just wanted to update you on the Regional Tree Canopy Subcommittee work. Since the last time the Climate, Energy, Environment and Policy Committee met, the Regional Tree Canopy Subcommittee chair, myself, and former council person Penny Gross went before the COG board on April 10th to present the recent report, Conserving Trees and Forests in the Metropolitan Washington Region, as well as a PowerPoint presentation that led up to a resolution that was presented to the COG board, Resolution R14-2024, that requests that the board accept the regional report that we just completed, the committee just completed, conserving trees and forests in the region. And we can probably, there's a copy of this on the website, COG website here, but this is the report. It's about 10 pages. And the board also accepted establishing a regional tree canopy goal of maintaining 50% tree cover across the metropolitan Washington region. These goals fit in with the COG climate program and many of our members' climate programs, as well as the Chesapeake Bay programs goals for regional forest cover, community quality of life and livability, as well as other water quality and just in general air quality goals. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on that, to let everybody know that, yay, we got this passed. The board of directors passed it unanimously. And so the next action is for us to develop an action plan that is building off of the work that we have done thus far. So now, Maya, is it possible to provide links or a link to the COG webpage, or do you want me to put it in the chat?
I think the chat's probably the easiest to do.
Okay. I will put a link in the chat to the COG webpage where this document is posted.
Yeah, I just dropped the report link in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Ask and you shall receive. So unless there are any questions, Chairwoman, this is that's it.
Okay, I'm not seeing any right now, so thank you very much. And now, CEEPC members, it's time for you to briefly share local updates the group may find beneficial. You can say them, or you can put them in the chat box. So let's get some updates. Let's start with DC.
Hi, everybody. Meredith Soniat from the District Department of Transportation. Just a really quick update that we have our first round of our National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure funding is coming to a close on Friday. So we're expecting all of our applications, really excited to see that the first round of projects come through. I don't know if we've been updating y'all along the way. This is only one of my first few meetings. So, but yeah, just wanted to share that. And I've worked with a lot of the colleagues in the region to help form that that program. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. How about Virginia? Anybody from Virginia here who can give an update?
Hi, I'm not sure if there are any Fairfax elected officials on the call, but
we're happy to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm John Morrill with the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination with Fairfax County Government. One little update is we had been pursuing exploration of a green bank, and the Board of Supervisors recently signaled putting that on a hold, not closing it off, but just rather refocusing on more direct outreach and market development of programming for residents. And part of that is an eye to maximizing participation in both the forthcoming state programs of Solar for All and the home energy rebates programs, as well as maximizing uptake of federal incentives and just really animating the market. Otherwise, we continue to press forward on some of our electric vehicle guidance for homeowners associations, an energy efficiency program for community groups and nonprofits, and a lot of ongoing work on resilience. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'll check to see if anyone else has any from Maryland. I have a little bit to say, but I'll give the floor to someone else from Maryland first.
I'm sorry, it's Demetra. Could I interrupt? I was just holding off to see if our elected officials were going to speak to Arlington, and I want to ask
so sorry.
permission from Board Member Karen Tonis before I proceed.
Go ahead, Demetra. We have good numbers for our budget this year, among the other things.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll make it very quick. So we have just completed, and we're starting to do our commission and public engagement on our RAMP project. This was 4 years in the making. It's a risk assessment and management plan with decision support tools, analytics, and vulnerability and risk assessments. There's a whole suite of elements that'll soon be on a webpage that we'll release by the end of the week. This regards our vulnerability, climate vulnerability to flooding. It is it's the second in a big adaptation and resiliency portfolio or suite of plans and tools that the county is doing that started off with the Energy Assurance Plan, which was completed last year. Also, as part of our operating budget, as Board Member Karen Tonis alluded, there was significant funding allocated towards our climate goals and specific allocations that were directed towards resiliency goals. That's timed perfectly with the countywide update of our comp plan with a new focus on resiliency in all the 11 sectors and components that make up the comp plan. Thank you. Oh, and we will soon be launching 2 federal grant programs, our EECBG grant, which is an e-bike rebate, which is why I asked that particular question about the batteries, and also a low-income focused disadvantaged communities to develop a suite of tools geared towards building upgrades, energy efficiency upgrades in buildings that are often very, very common to our disadvantaged communities in those areas. So thank you.
Did I miss anyone else from Virginia? You might have to speak up because I can't see everything there. Okay. And thank you, Amanda, for putting in the link in the chat for the solar switch. Okay. Well, how about Maryland?
Hi, this is Darren Lovas from the Maryland Department of Transportation. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah.
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, just briefly following up on my colleague from DDOT's update on NEVI. We are right now in the evaluation phase for our first round of NEVI grant making, hoping to make conditional awards about a month from now. Last week, we closed our most recent NEVI public survey with more than 1,400 responses, which is a record for those types of surveys for us, I'm proud to say. And among other things, the survey found that a lot of Marylanders aren't really familiar with NEVI. So we are working on some webinars to do a public education effort to help rectify that. And then the last thing I'll mention is we're working on our NEVI plan update, which is due in to USDOT by August 1st. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else from Maryland? Yeah. Well, I'll just throw in that, of course, the state is requiring the counties to comply with woodland conservation goals, and so we have new rules that we needed to pass for the county, and it increases the baseline tree canopy preservation, and we're trying to make sure that we have more sustainable practices. So that's something that we passed here in Prince George's County recently. I know that the state did have a delay on some of it, but we decided to go ahead for the moment. And it's probably not perfect what we passed, but we're going to continue to work on it over the summer and probably come back with some amendments. Let's see. I see that Dan is having some trouble, and he's asking if we can read the chats. So, oh, it says it's working again. All right. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if there's anybody else from Maryland who wanted to speak. And are there any other members who'd like to share anything before we go on to COG staff? Okay, well, Jeff, do you have anything, or any other COG staff? Do you have additional updates? Jeff King?
None for me right now. I'll if I have anything, I'll bring it up during the work program and budget.
Okay, great. Somebody was just speaking up. I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, Madam Chair, this is Maya from COG staff.
Yes.
I just wanted to announce that in a few weeks, we are launching our climate budget cohort. This is, we are one of the first groups in the country to be able to bring this type of education series to our communities. And we have 8 local governments and organizations that are going to be participating. Alexandria, Arlington, Bowie, Laurel, Prince George's County, Frederick County, Fairfax County, and DC Water are all going to be participating with us and learning more about how to incorporate our climate action plans into local governments and operational budgets and CIP plans. So we'll update you all along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Maya. And let's see, Jeff King, come on back. Can you give us an update on the work program and budget? And then we'll have a request for a vote for approval.
Sure. It looks like, okay, great. Maya's pulling it up. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so today we're going to walk through the Regional Environment Fund work program and budget. And this, as Chair Ivy mentioned, will be an action item. Seeking your approval today. It has been reviewed by the BIAC committee and ready for action today. So Maya, if you go to the next slide. And so the work on the Regional Environment Fund, and folks should know this is one of several funds we have here at COG. So, you know, COG has member dues, but we also have the Regional Environment Fund, Regional Water Fund, Regional Public Safety Fund, and now the new Farm Committee Fund. So this is one of those. And the work on the Regional Environmental Resource Management is really towards supporting the overall larger COG vision, which is the Region Forward vision of a prosperous, accessible, livable, and sustainable future. So we fit in there at the sustainability piece, and really one of the key priorities of the Regional Environmental Resource Management is the Climate and Energy Program, but there are some others, as you'll see in the next slide. So next slide. And actually, if you go back to the other slide real quick, Maya, one thing I want to point out. And so you heard earlier today from AgPac the notion that they and we posted online a memo from AgPac urging the committee to really look more closely at a more aggressive climate goal. And so just wanted to point out, currently it was adopted back in 2008. We have our out year goal of 2050, 80% reduction by 2050. In 2020, the COG board adopted the new interim 2030 goal of 50% reduction. As I have mentioned in the past, one of our key initiatives right now is really to accelerate implementation of actions to meet the 2030 goal. We feel that's a really aggressive, challenging goal to meet, and we're trying to kind of figure out all the ways we can get things moving in the right direction to meet that goal. But there is a growing interest in COG, and I think this will flow to CEEPC at some point, of looking at what we can do to strengthen those goals to address the global challenge that we have. Not on our, not squarely on our agenda today, but I do see a need for us to start having those conversations at some point. And Chair Ivy, I'll get with you about that and talk to some others in leadership about what that looks like. There will be a requirement that we actually think about that quite a bit as part of our next phase of the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. So that will be one forum where we could start having some of those conversations. So next slide. And so again, this is the Regional Environment Fund. It has two main sources from the COG board budget of the Regional Environment Fund, a little over 800,000 there, and then COG member dues supplement that fund on the order of about 460,000. We also, one of the key uses of the fund is to attract other resources for COG in the region. So you see there, we do attract a sizable amount of grants to support our work. As I think I mentioned, the COG board adopts the budget for COG member dues, and when they do that, they also adopt the budgets for each of the regional funds. So that this flows out of the COG board. The work program budget today is the work activities that we propose for use of these funds. So we cut the program into three main areas: climate and energy, recycling, solid waste management, and regional forest and tree canopy management. We did have the farm program in this work program budget in the past, but since they've established the new regional farm fund, they now are off on their own, but clearly we're real interested in what's going on in the agricultural sector. Within the climate and energy, which is the majority of our work, as I mentioned, in this program, it's cut across a number of areas, which I'll walk through here in the next slide. So next slide, Maya. And before I go through each one, just some highlights. So there's a few new things that we'll be working on this year. Maya mentioned we have this new climate action budgeting cohort. So really excited to see how that goes, and really pleased to see so many interested folks from around the region wanting to participate. So I'm hoping that goes well. Our new executive director, Clark Mercer, is really interested in our solar program. And as I think you're all aware, the COG board adopted a new aggressive goal of 250,000 solar rooftops by 2050. Was really pleased to see in the chat that Rockville is continuing to work on solar co-ops. That's clearly one of the key things we need to see happen to get more solar deployed across the region. You heard from Brian LeCouture. One of our new activities this year is going to be developing an action plan to meet our new 50% tree canopy goal. And we and others across the country and our partner states and partner metro areas had a ton of work between October and March working on the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant PCAP that you've heard about, the Priority Climate Action Plan. Starting this summer and into 2025, we will need to turn our attention to the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan called the CEEPC, and that's the one where under the grant program, one of the requirements is that we think about those kind of concepts of zero carbon out year goals and what we might need to do about that. And then a bunch of ongoing things. We're doing a lot of activity supporting local climate planning and implementation work at the local level. We have a series of consultant contractors that are helping our local governments in that regard. Continue to work on one of the COG board priorities of electric vehicle infrastructure planning. Maya is actively working with the team to ramp up activities on the new 2023 greenhouse gas inventory work. That's a lot of effort. Takes quite some time to do it. So I think you'll see those results at some point next year, maybe. We as I mentioned, try to use the Regional Environment Fund to leverage to try to secure resources for COG in the region. So we try to crank out grant proposals where possible to try to win some good support work. We have recently launched and are real interested again this year on the Climate Energy Leadership Awards. And one of my favorite projects is working under the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, currently continuing to repower locomotives that operate at Union Station with new clean diesel, which use about half the amount of fuel that otherwise would. Next slide. And I'll try to go quickly through these. So one of the key areas of the climate energy support is our policy and technical committee. So it's staff work to support CEEPC and BEAC, again, to support all the activities around our 2030 climate energy implementation work. Clearly, we're always on the lookout for new policies and programs to support your work on meeting our goals. We do our best to try to track opportunities from the various federal resources, which has been really exciting in the last year or two. We also, of course, like to look at, track, report on various regulatory legislative initiatives and new programs. So try to kind of stay abreast of those things and do what we can to build capacity through networking, workshops, training, etc. We have an annual utility data collection and analysis program. All of the big utilities, electric and gas utilities, report to us annually, and that's been going on for more than a decade now. Really useful relationship we have with the utilities, and the data we collect is, I think, real useful in informing some of our work here. And then something that hopefully we don't use a lot of, but we have in place should we need it, is the Regional Emergency Support Function 12, RESF 12, for energy. That would be propping up the energy folks, the technical folks within our membership to respond or help respond to an energy emergency should that happen. Next slide. We have a significant portion of our budget dedicated to energy policy and project support. So again, EVs, solar, and supporting our locals, and kind of anything we can do to increase our ability to deploy energy efficiency solutions, decarbonization solutions, renewable energy, that kind of thing. So next slide. An area that we've been working on for quite some time. I'm more of a mitigation person myself, but I recognize that some of the impacts of climate change are already upon us, and we're expecting more. So we need to continually look at what we can do to adapt and how we can be more resilient. So we have a variety of activities that focus on that aspect of our work. The two most notable ones that are kind of currently active is our Military Installation Resilience Review Program, working with the military bases and communities on resilience investments that can be made. We're also really excited to see the work on TPB is doing on the Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan, the TRIP. And so we continue to look to support all of our members and states on adaptation and resilience. Next slide. We also have co-fund the support for the Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee with MWAC. So the staff of that committee and the kind of work to support that committee is both from MWAC and CEEPC. And as you heard from Julie Kimmel, they meet bi-monthly and take on a variety of different interests and areas of focus. Probably the biggest long-standing program is their leadership on the Climate Energy Leadership Awards, but we also are really excited to see their interest in EJ, environmental justice, which will be a big area of focus this year under the MWAC program in particular. Next slide. We also have a little bit of the budget dedicated to COG board and member support. So this would be, things that come up where we can add extra value, would be kind of a member support, and then our traditional, management activities to work with the COG board on both the budget and other aspects of our work. Next slide. We provide significant funding under this Regional Environment Fund for John Snar's Recycling Solid Waste Program. So you heard from him earlier. He has a variety of different activities, and one of our more interesting committees for sure. And as you saw from his video, very critical that they continue to support the region on all aspects of solid waste and recycling. Next slide. And you heard from Brian. So the other piece that we fund is the forestry and tree canopy work. The main action this year, again, will be working on this new tree canopy action plan, but there's a variety of other activities, but mainly focused on the tree canopy subcommittee and the action plan this year. Next slide. And that's it. Thank you, Chair Ivy. Happy to answer any questions. And you're muted. Chair Ivy, you're still muted.
There we go.
All right. We can hear you now.
Sorry, Jeff.
That's okay.
So are there any questions for Jeff? Okay, well, I think it is time for
Sorry,
us.
Dan Scalera with a question.
Thank
Jeff,
you.
what entities are eligible for the urban forest grants?
So I think Brian hopefully is still online. It looks like, by the way, my video has frozen, so I'm off camera now. I don't know
We can still hear you.
Good, excellent. So as I understand it, Dan, the main funding that we get here at COG for the forestry work is through the state forestry program, in particular the DC State Forester. And so the deal is set up where we're kind of, I guess you'd call subcontractors or contractors to the state forester. So it's a U.S. Forest Service grant coming through the District of Columbia. I guess I don't know if we're treated as a subrecipient or a contractor, but that money then flows to the program. We then hire contractors to do the work. So for instance, our current one, as I understand it, is that we have funding from the U.S. Forest Service through DC to hire a fellow out of, I think, Bowie, who does food forest work. So instead of planting trees that are just trees, they plant trees that bear fruit. So, and hopefully I did that right. And I see Randy ask a question. Is there any news on CPRG? No, there's no news yet.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Demetra? I see your hand up, or is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a vestigial hand. I'll take it down now. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm just glad I finally was able to see something. I wanted to remind members about the voting procedure. Staff have taken note of your presence and confirmed a quorum. First and second motions can be verbal or in the chat box. And if you say nothing, we're counting your vote as a yes. I will ask for no's and abstentions verbally or in the chat box. Okay. So before we open it up for discussion, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Takis.
Tandy, with gratitude to all the work that went into that.
Indeed. And is there a second?
I second.
And can you just say who it is so I can?
Sure. Randy Freed, and I second the motion.
Thank you, Randy. And is there any discussion? Okay, it's time to vote. All in favor can remain silent. And if you vote no or abstain, please let us know now. So the motion passes. Next on the agenda, we're going to discuss the Solar for All. EPA has announced awards to DC, Maryland, and Virginia totaling more than $280 million. Plus, 4 out of the 5 multi-state awards include 1 or more of our states. For more information about these awards are in your meeting documents online, and we'll hear directly first from the District of Columbia and then Virginia on their awards. Okay, DC, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit with you today about the For All program. My name is Laura Pimentel with the DC Department of Energy and Environment Solar for All program. I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of a brief background on our existing program. You can go ahead to the next slide. So our Solar for All, and I know it gets confusing because our program is named Solar for All, so is the federal initiative. So I'm going to start calling it the DC Solar. DC Solar for All was established in 2016 here in the district. To date, we have provided more than 9,500 low to moderate income district residents with more than 37 megawatts of clean energy and an annual utility bill savings of $5 million. Each participant receives $500 a year in energy savings on their PEPCO bill. The goal of the program is to serve 100,000 low to moderate income residents by 2032. Next slide. The current model has two options. We have a rooftop option and a solar option. The rooftop option is for income qualified single family homeowners where they can get solar panels on their roof for no cost. The system is sized specifically to reduce their electricity bills by $500 a year. That program is administered by our partners at the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. And homeowners can also package that with other programs for efficiency, like our weatherization program, roof repairs may be available, HVAC replacements, etc. And then we have our community solar option. This is for income qualified renters, condo and co-op owners, and for single family homeowners who may not want to receive the panels or cannot for some reason on their property. This is a subscription-based program. They subscribe to receive credits directly on their PEPCO bill each month, again, totaling $500 a year for 15 years. There is a one-time income qualification process. We do utilize categorical eligibility as much as possible to make it as easy to access as possible. And residents who are approved for our LAHEAP program, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is also administered by DOEE, are automatically enrolled and approved for Solar for All. And we administer the community solar portion while our friends at the DCSEU do the rooftop and the RFP process for developers. So just to give you an idea of how we're currently structured. Next slide. And then how we plan to expand. So as you are aware, the district was awarded $62,450,000 from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund from the EPA. We anticipate that this will allow us to serve close to 20,000 low to moderate income district residents over the 5-year project period. Now, in anticipation of our application for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, we released last July a request for partners to join our coalition application. We received 19 applications and we chose the following 7 nonprofit partners. And I'm just going to briefly go over those and their unique role and contribution to the expansion. Next slide. These first 3 partners are the partners that provide project financing. The first is the DC Green Bank. They are going to be establishing a 0% interest revolving loan fund that will cover pre-development costs, construction costs, and also bridge loans to help the community entities access the federal tax credits to the greatest extent possible. They are going to be targeting community organizations since we do now have through the Inflation Reduction Act, the ability for these non-taxable entities to access the credits through direct pay, and also affordable housing projects through multifamily developers. These products, the loan products we envision, are going to be able to be combined with a number of the other different financial products that are going to be offered through the program. The next is, again, the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. Again, they manage that request for proposals process with the solar developers, and they currently administer a per watt incentive for projects. So that, combined with some of the other incentives in the district solar market, have been a very successful model for getting projects built. So we are going to continue with that model through the expansion phase, and they are going to continue to administer that. And then finally, we have City First Enterprises. City First is a CDFI. They focus specifically on multifamily affordable housing. We have seen that it is a challenge to reach the affordable housing developers. We know that their financing structure for the affordable housing piece is extremely complicated, and we found that they are loath to include renewables sometimes in their model. So City First really kind of has an in with those groups and are going to be working specifically with them and their unique needs in offering, again, 0% interest loans and some pre-development grant funding as well. Next slide. We are also partnering with, partnering with IBEW, the local electrical union. We have currently done some work with them already to recruit district residents from the same disadvantaged communities where our projects are going to be built. to be trained as electricians so that we have sufficient workforce to manage all of these projects, and also help us to meet labor requirements for Davis-Bacon and the like, and ensure that laborers are paid sufficient wages. Interfaith Power and Light is an outreach partner. We have a couple of outreach and education partners. Interfaith Power and Light works with the faith-based community around environmental issues and climate change. They are going to be, they have what they call a Solar Shepherd program, which I think is a fantastic name because that's exactly what they're going to be doing, is shepherding folks through the process. You know, one of the things that we know in the 8 years of doing this is that the messaging for solar can be very challenging. There's a number of different types of models that people could adopt, some different options, and ensuring that people understand those options and what makes sense for them. And now we're going to have even more with the expansion of this program. So having someone who can really walk through the process with them and help them understand what their options are is really key. And folks who already, of course, have the trust and the connections on the ground. We've already had a lot of success with the faith-based community. A lot of churches have taken on solar projects that help to reduce the energy bills of their congregants. And so we know that there's still a lot of interest in that community, and Interfaith Power and Light is going to help us work with those folks. Next slide. Also, the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative have been working on the intersection of healthy homes and the environment for a very long time. They both work on the ground with individual residents and also with contractors to provide a lot of technical assistance training that's going to enable them to really maximize some of the incentives that are out there that, again, we know people are having a hard time getting their heads around and understanding the process for actually taking advantage of them. And then last but not least, we are working with Groundswell, who is they do a multitude of things. For this project, they're going to be doing our subscriber management piece and data management piece, a very important part. They're going to make sure that people get connected to the right community solar project. They're going to ensure that they receive the benefits that they should be receiving on their bill. They're going to be that customer service touch point for the subscribers in the program if they have any issues or concerns. Next slide. So this is just sort of the bullets of what we have proposed in our project, some of the main points that we know that we want to make sure and focus on. First of all is making sure to leverage the federal tax incentives across all of the financial products and including the incentive payments for developers. We want to make sure that folks are able to maximize the amount of tax credit that they are getting, and provide some direct technical assistance, project-based technical assistance, so that they can figure out exactly how to do that. We are going to be, again, creating the low-cost revolving loan fund. We envision these products can be combined, so even the developers that might be getting the incentive payment could also be getting loans as a bridge loan for those tax incentives. They can be mixed and matched. We want to specifically focus, because it has been a challenge, as I mentioned in the past, for a number of reasons, but promoting solar and some storage as well on multi-unit affordable housing, and bringing on somebody on board, as we have with City First Enterprises, who really understands the unique needs of the affordable housing community in doing that. We are also excited to create a new grant program for the enabling upgrades piece. Again, in the 8 years that we've been doing this, we have seen that roof conditions have definitely been a barrier to being able to unlock solar. So having a fund that is going to allow for roof repairs and the electrical upgrades necessary will unlock even more solar and battery storage. And then promoting community ownership. So again, we have some changes that allow community organizations to get easier access to credits and incentives that will help them to create these projects and own these projects. And on an individual level as well, we want to start creating models for community ownership, not only so that folks are lowering their electricity costs, but also so that they are building wealth and equity as well. Next slide. Workforce development, of course, is another key piece to this. Again, we have been partnering with IBEW and looking to partner with other unions as well to ensure that we have the trained district residents that we need in order to carry out these projects, and also to lift up these district residents into a good job that will provide them with a middle-class living for the rest of their lives. Again, the project technical assistance piece is going to be important in the district as well as in other jurisdictions and around the country. Interconnection continues to be a challenge. We would like to bring specific engineers, to advise on individual products and some things that they can do to avoid some of the interconnection challenges that we have seen. Where to site projects, we're currently conducting a hosting capacity study. So we want to provide as much support as possible to help projects get through that process as easily as possible. Again, increased outreach and education. This just continues to be a really key piece. We know that people are confused by what some of these options are. We know that there are a number of actors out there that don't have people's best intentions at heart, and people have come into contact with them, and so they are afraid of being taken advantage of. So having, as many partners as possible who are already on the ground and who have the trust of the community to be able to provide that education piece is really important. And lastly, we are establishing a pipeline of specifically district-owned properties. The district wants to lead with this example. And in the past, the way that the model has worked is that it's the developers who find the site hosts for the projects. We want to create a pipeline of district-owned properties, and we're talking with our sister agencies about the properties in their portfolio where they would be able to do solar, and sort of bringing that to bid with our developers to ensure that we're really capturing as much of the roof space as we can in the district. Next slide. And last but again not least is of course our equity commitment. There's a number of ways that we are hoping to ensure that this continues to be truly Solar for All, an equitable project. We are serving low to moderate income residents who are in the same disadvantaged communities that have been defined by the EPA in their CGEST screening tool. We are going to be serving LMI residents in multi-unit buildings who do not pay an electricity bill, which is a challenge that we have encountered. Again, the benefits for the community solar piece go directly onto the PEPCO bill, and so folks who have utilities included in their rent currently are not able to take advantage of the program, though we know that they are still paying for those costs. And so being able to develop an indirect benefit model, where those folks can also receive benefits outside of the utility bill is another important goal of ours. We want to reduce energy burden. That is, how we've created the calculation for the amount of incentive that people will get, so that we reduce energy burden for LMI residents to be proportionate with the average energy burden in the district. We want to lower barriers to participation. We want this to be as easy as possible. We understand that the reputation of government is sometimes that it is not as easy as possible, and we want to change that. We have done that with our current program by, again, using the categorical eligibility, so that people who are enrolled in programs like LAHEAP or SNAP or TANF, who have a housing voucher, et cetera, we sort of have a list of programs. If people show that they are participating in those programs, then we consider them income qualified for the program. We also just do a one-time income verification, and then folks can receive the benefit for 15 years. They don't have to reapply, don't have to show their income documents again. We just ask people to self-report if they, at some point during that 15 years, no longer meet the eligibility criteria. We are in compliance with Justice 40 principles, stating that at least 40% of the benefits will flow to disadvantaged communities. It's going to be much more than 40% of the benefits in the district will flow to disadvantaged communities. We are creating both a Solar for All task force and a community advisory council that is made up of community members who will provide feedback and help to guide the implementation process. And as I mentioned before, promoting community ownership models that will help build equity and wealth. And that is it. That is sort of the brief overview. I'm sure you may have additional questions. Here's our contact information. If you'd like to reach out to us, we'd love to hear from you.
You're still on mute.
Yeah,
Chair.
I don't know if we have questions for Laura, and then we also have a presentation from Cindy. Okay, Cindy, are
Laura.
Sorry.
you okay, Demetra?
I'm so sorry. Very quickly, because DC is, in terms of its building composition and its rental composition, somewhat similar. So in Arlington, when we look at that, we're looking at a very high rental rate, be it single family or multifamily, that is higher in our LIDAC communities than more affluent. So in terms of reaching out to the building owners, is there a special approach that you're taking on even identifying who those people are and reaching out to them directly?
Yeah, so we're taking multiple approaches. I think one thing is that we've got a really robust Healthy Homes community who is has been working for a long time to reach some of those same building owners about some housing conditions that are providing unsafe housing conditions for folks. And so we have begun working together with them, both in the efficiency piece and the renewables piece, and they have already made some inroads. So again, we're trying to find who are the folks that are kind of talking with this community and being able to partner with them. In addition, our Department of Housing and Community Development has some small buildings programs that sort of meet some of these criterias that provide some funding for some of the condition issues that some of these sort of lower income, especially multi-unit building owners might be facing, and we're looking to partner with them. But it is definitely an ongoing process. And again, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring on City First Enterprises, because we know that they're working within this community. They have a better understanding of what will incentivize them and what will kind of bring them to the table. So I think the short answer, we're continually looking for ways to continue to speak with that community, but we're relying on partners who we think are already having those conversations.
Great, thank you.
You know, I have a question for you. It reminds me that a lot of times when I'm talking to developers who want to build multifamily and I encourage them to include solar on the roof, they tell me there's not space because they have to put the air conditioning units on the roof. And I don't know what to kind of counter with. So what are you doing? I know they also have air conditioning in DC. So how are you handling that?
Yeah, they do. There's sort of a number of things that we hear of, they want to put a roof deck on for the residents or something like that. And we also have, stormwater, management priorities as well here within the district. And so it depends on each individual project, but a lot of times you can do both, and it's just a matter of the design. And I think that's where some of that technical assistance piece comes in, is helping people understand how they could potentially design the project so that there might be space for both, or there might be other alternatives for what they're originally thinking for the roof. But part of that is also going to be what is the incentive for doing this, and something that makes them, excited about being committed to wanting to include renewables on the building. But a key thing to that is obviously, if we're talking about design, is getting to them early in the process. So that is also where, that outreach and education piece comes in, and one of our partners who specifically does work with developers and contractors to get the word out early.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to Carrie.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Chair Ivy, for the opportunity to present to the committee. And my name is Carrie Hearn. I'm the Director of Affordability and Competitiveness at the Virginia Department of Energy State Energy Office. And thank you, Jeff King and Maya, for the invitation to join today and fit me in. It's a high bar to go after the DC Solar for All program. They've been a guiding light in this area, and we're very excited to learn from their efforts. So it was really great to see Laura's presentation today. So we are very excited that Virginia Department of Energy has been selected to receive a competitive Solar for All award from the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And this is going to be called SAVE, the Solar for All Virginia Energy Program. And you can move to the next slide. Some of this will be a little bit repetitive. But the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, just in terms of high level objectives, really to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and air pollutants, to reach low income and disadvantaged communities, to really deliver these benefits through various projects. And last but certainly not least, a really important goal to mobilize financing and private capital to stimulate additional deployment of projects that achieve these goals. And so that's across the whole fund. If you move into the next slide, you'll see that the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, as many of you know, has 3 different components. I'll be talking about Virginia's award in the Solar for All competition, but we're watching closely and hoping to coordinate and provide opportunities to connect across the 3 programs overall, from the National Clean Investment Fund, fund managers that have also been awarded at this point, as well as the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. So moving into the next slide, a little bit about our timeline. First, I want to back way up and say in 2019, Virginia established the Clean Energy Advisory Board and a low to moderate income solar fund, which I have been lead staff to support and provide research and analysis for. And although that fund has not received direct funding from the state, it really gave us an opportunity to research the opportunities and barriers around creating incentive programs to reach low to moderate income homeowners across Virginia. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and I think it positioned us very well to compete for EPA Solar for All funding. So last year, when the initial announcements were made in the spring around what the framework would be from EPA for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, we started initiating our own internal planning and putting together opportunities for public engagement. We submitted that letter of intent to apply as the state energy office, and worked throughout the summer and into the fall to submit a final application. And we were very happy to receive support from many of you on this call throughout that process, participating in our public meetings and submitting letters of support. So that was submitted in October, and we waited throughout the winter and into the spring, and we're very excited in April to be part of the EPA announcement on Earth Day, when the Solar for All selections were announced. And so we are now in this period of negotiation with EPA to receive the award, to define the very specific terms of the opportunity. And in September of 2024, we will begin a 12-month planning process that gets us into the very specific details of how the program funds will be channeled through various sub-awards, through various competitively selected partnerships or business affiliates, and then start awarding those dollars out into the community no later than September 2025. So just to be clear, this program is not yet active currently for applications, but we are working on this timeline to move forward into the deployment phase. So you can move into the next slide. Our award from EPA is just over $156 million. When we applied last year, we applied for the maximum value, which was for Virginia $250 million. And all of these 60 selected applicants, we had our budget reduced by EPA to ensure that everyone could receive a significant amount of funding. So we're very excited about the $156 million award that we're being selected for. And again, really reiterating a lot of what Laura said, that these program funds really must enable low-income and disadvantaged communities to benefit from residential serving distributed solar. So these are all projects of less than 5 megawatts, a lot of which will be via rooftops, or some of which will be supported through subscription-based shared solar projects. And all of these must deliver at least 20% bill savings to the households that are served on average across the portfolio. We will have 5 years to deploy these funds. And that first year, as I mentioned, is used for project planning. So next slide, please. These are estimates. This is really detailed in our application and through a lot of the modeling and research that we've conducted up until this point. But we are estimating from that $156 million award that we will serve a little over 16,000 households and create around 1,200 new jobs, reaching an overall lifetime economic benefit to the Commonwealth of Virginia of approximately $400 million. And that is through, again, distributed rooftop and community solar projects that in aggregate reach about a little over 100 megawatts of solar. And of course, generating annual clean energy electrons onto the grid. So you can move on to the next slide. We have spent quite a bit of time looking at eligible households that would be in compliance with EPA's terms for who is eligible. And in Virginia, we have several different factors that come into play, but in looking at both geographic considerations and economic considerations around both community designations as energy communities or through the Environmental Justice Screening Tool, as well as CEEPC, the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, plus looking at economic factors such as individual household income. We believe that there are over 1.75 million households in Virginia that could be eligible. So clearly there's a huge opportunity, and of course we'll only be able to serve a very small fraction of that population. And this is where our program design around reaching market transformation is so important, so that we can design individual grants and incentives that really spur a much broader set of market activities that can reach a much broader set of households long-term, even beyond that 5-year time frame. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see a little bit of the mapping that we did for this project, again, both on the geographic level with respect to the definitions provided through EPA, and also on individual household income eligibility. So on the right-hand side, each of those purple dots represents 750 households that are within that income-based eligibility. Of course, you see concentrations in many of our metropolitan regions, including Northern Virginia. And of course, you also see it distributed across the entirety of the Commonwealth, some in greater concentrations than others. But our program really will be meant to impact and serve all of Virginia with targeted marketing and outreach into these communities. One other thing before we go on to the next slide, I wanted to mention on our website, we have a new disadvantaged communities mapping tool that is very interactive. You can even type in an individual household address or a business address and see the community attributions relating to the census tracts, the local government, and other demographic indicators. You can see the layers that are created through the federal government from the CEEPC tool for Justice 40 communities. You can see energy community status and designations, qualified opportunity zones, as well as Virginia's specific historically economically disadvantaged community status. So I will put that link in the chat and you can take a look at that, interactive tool as well.
And,
All right,
and
so-
Carrie, I'm only interrupting for a moment because I actually need to leave the meeting, and Council Member Cindy DeBala from Tacoma Park is going to take over. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I will move quickly because I know you made time for me into this presentation. So going quickly through these slides, we have a portfolio of different types of programs that will be established through the fund, reaching single-family homeowners, multifamily projects and multifamily housing, as well as subscription-based services through shared and community solar, including those who may be renting and not owning their own home. So there's a lot more detail that I could provide about how those will be reached. But moving into the next slide, we really want to make sure that the new federal tax credits and other incentives are stacked and that maximize the savings to the household and also reduce the amount of funding that comes from the fund so that we can serve more households across the board. So this is just a visualization of some of the different tax credits and bonuses that come when a project is designed to serve in energy communities, designed to serve a low-income household or community, using domestic content in the products and prevailing wages, including apprenticeships in terms of those workforce components. So moving on to the next slide. And we can just move all through these. So we've got program design elements for marketing, education, and outreach, policy analysis to reduce barriers, including legal analysis and support. And in the next slide, talk about technical assistance through workforce training grants, a business accelerator for small woman-owned and minority-owned businesses, certain requirements around participating contractors that will be eligible within the program. And on the next slide, we get into some of the barriers that we know are currently in place that need to be assessed and potentially funded through the program, looking at interconnection challenges and making sure that projects are able to get connected onto the grid and are not kicked out of the system because of exorbitant interconnection costs or processes. So this is a program that will be part of this to supplement the actual financial incentives for the projects themselves. And next slide. Just to reiterate, we did a lot of public outreach and comments and received nearly 100 letters of support that we included in our final application. And on the next slide, you'll see our contact information. Very pleased to have our State Energy Office Director, Vince Maiden, on the call here from the State Energy Office. And there's some other contacts from our team that's been working on Solar for All. So with that, I will turn it back to staff and happy to answer any questions. I see a couple of chats and for the sake of time, happy to address these offline or now if I'm able to.
Thank you, Carrie. We do have 2 more speakers, so we'll be going the distance till noon today. And I would appreciate, Carrie, if we could put questions in the chat and have you answer them. I'm also going to suggest, if you are available along with Deb and Laura, maybe we can do a little Q&A informally after the meeting officially ends at noon. So apologies to the whole crowd, but let's try to do it this way and see if we can get everybody's questions answered. Thank you. So our next speaker is from SolSmart, continuing the solar theme. Deb Perry from ICMA is going to talk to us about SolSmart. Can we cue that? Yes. Okay. Deb, take it away. Thank you.
Excellent. Well,
Thank you all for having me today, and it is exciting to be part of a solar-themed meeting. I'm going to talk about SolSmart, which many of you, I think, have some familiarity with, but I have some updates to share and some ideas I wanted to share with this group. If you want to go to the next slide, just a quick overview of what I'll cover. Again, I'll talk about the program itself and provide some updates. I'll briefly talk about what we mean when we talk about best practices in SolSmart. And then I want to talk about opportunities for regional collaboration and questions. Happy to answer those in the chat, and can probably stay a few minutes after the meeting to also answer questions. I should say I am from ICMA, the International City County Management Association, our logo there on the slide. We run SolSmart in partnership with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC. And together we've been running SolSmart since 2016. SolSmart is federally funded. So this is my disclaimer that I have to share. We get our funding from the Department of Energy, but all the opinions I express today are my own, and I am not a representative of DOE. So if you can go to the next slide, we'll get into the more interesting stuff. So again, I know many of you have some familiarity with the program. Some of you have participated in various ways, but about SolSmart, we are a no-cost technical assistance and designation program, and I'll talk more about what that means in a minute. And we serve local governments, so that's cities, towns, counties, and regional organizations. All can seek designation and assistance through the program. We really focus on removing barriers to solar energy growth and ultimately making it easier, faster, cheaper to go solar in communities. If you want to go to the next slide, what's new? We have a few new exciting things going on. We are funded through 2027. So we received another grant from DOE to continue the program and to build the program. And our goal is to serve another 500 communities in the next few years. Last spring, we launched a revised set of criteria, really reflecting the new best practices in solar. We revisited some of our scoring and added some new areas, including automated permitting, more credits related to solar plus storage, and a stronger emphasis on equity. And as the previous speakers have mentioned, we're also part of the Justice 40 initiative. We've also added a platinum designation level. So again, I'll talk about designation in a minute, but just to say we have a new level that recognizes those communities that are really leading in solar. So if you go to the next slide, I think the previous two speakers hammered this point home. It has never been more affordable to go solar. It is a really exciting time to be working on this. And through the IRA, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law, there's just an unprecedented amount of funding and programs and opportunities. There are new tax credits. There are these new grants, including the Solar for All grants. So there's just a lot going on, and we really are encouraging communities to think about working with SolSmart to make sure that you're ready. We offer a lot of resources we've developed over the years to get your policies in order, to get your staff trained, things like that are all accessible at no cost through SolSmart to be ready for all of the funding and the investment that's coming. So if you go to the next slide, I mentioned that we try to drive down the soft costs of solar energy. And so 65% of the cost of solar is not related to hardware. This is driven by things like the cost of marketing and the cost of financing and delays and fees and other things. So 65% is a lot. And that's an area that local governments can be really impactful in reducing those costs. So examples of things that can reduce soft costs are streamlining permitting and inspection, having shorter timelines, quicker and easier processes. Supporting consumer education and getting more people kind of ready to be a solar customer, more knowledgeable, understanding the process, that sort of thing. Local governments leading by example is really important, giving people projects that they can see and understand, again, getting at that consumer education piece. Facilitating things like group purchasing. I was really excited to see the campaign that's going on when communities can offer things like the oh, I'm blanking on the name, but with Solar United Neighbors, bringing people together and getting better prices is a really meaningful way to again, drive down that cost. And then filling in gaps in financing, and the Solar for All programs will certainly be doing a lot of that. And I'm really, one of my main talking points this year is absolutely the solar market is going to grow nationwide. We are going to have incredible growth in solar. Whether it happens in your community, whether your community gets all of those benefits, I think really does require a proactive approach to be clear about your goals and what benefits you're looking for in your community. So on to the next slide. High level, SolSmart, we have served 526 communities across the country so far. And we have, oh, I realized the labels didn't show up here. So we have our 4 designation levels. At the bottom, we have our bronze designation, and then silver, gold, and I mentioned platinum is new. So we have 3 platinum designees in the United States so far. Those are Fremont, California, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and Dane County, Wisconsin. We have 117 million Americans who were served through the program. So basically 1 in 3 US residents is in a community that is SolSmart designated. If you go to the next slide, I zoomed in to the DC area to show you who's part of the program already. And here you see the bronze, silver, and gold levels, but we don't have any platinum designees in the region yet. So we're really excited at the prospect of maybe working with some of you all and getting our first platinum, even really east, like I guess, like I said, the most eastern so far is Wisconsin. So it'd be very exciting to see some platinum designees in the east. If you go to the next slide, so the designation structure, I referenced this now multiple times, but basically you take actions to reduce barriers to solar, to drive down soft costs. And the more actions you take, the more points you accrue, and you move up in the designation level. So bronze is kind of our first entry level for the actions that you take, and then you can move up to silver, gold, and now the platinum level designation. So it really is kind of a choose your own adventure. We have a program guide that lays out the different actions that you can take and the different credits that you can earn. And then you really can choose what's meaningful to your community. There are some prerequisites at each level that you must do, but for the most part, it's a menu of items, and you can kind of pick off of that what's meaningful to you. So if you go to the next slide, at a very high level, the SolSmart actions aim to do these 4 things. We aim to improve policies and procedures. So that's things like adopting best practices in zoning, permitting, and inspection. I have some examples here, but I'll let you read those. We aim to increase transparency. So we really want to provide clear information on the process so that potential solar customer, solar developers understand the process. They can clearly access information and guidance. They know what's going to be required of them, that sort of thing. We work to increase understanding. So this is increasing solar knowledge, both to internal and external stakeholders. So that can be training staff, and it can also be offering solar information sessions. And lastly, we work to reduce barriers. So with the communities, we identify potential barriers. That could be something in your zoning language or something in your permitting process, and then again, come up with the right approach to remove those barriers. So in the next slide, these actions are organized into 5 main categories: permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, government operations, which is really about actions you take in your own buildings and facilities, market development, and then community engagement. So across these categories, we have 92 different criteria. Again, it's a long menu that you can pick and choose from, and point values range from 5 points, which tend to be things that are a little easier to do, up to 20 points for those items that often are a bigger lift. And in the picture here, you see folks with their plaques. So at the end of the day, that is what you get to hang on the wall, indicating your designation. Go ahead to the next slide. Alongside of this process, you receive customized technical assistance. We have a technical assistance team that includes a number of organizations with expertise across a range of issues. So again, planning and zoning, permitting and inspection, procurement, solar design, feasibility, market expertise, financing expertise, stakeholder engagement. So our team can cover a broad range of issues, and the technical assistance is provided at no cost for those who are participating. On to the next slide. I mentioned we have our program guides. We actually have 3 different program guides. So most communities go through what we call our standard pathway. That's for communities that do have zoning regulations, permitting, and inspection processes. But we know that some communities don't control those things. So we do have what we call our modified pathway for communities that don't have control over zoning or permitting. And then we have a regional pathway for regional organizations. These are the guides where we have compiled all of those best practices, and they include a lot of examples, links to templates, things like that. So on the next slide, just featuring some of that. For all of the actions that we recommend with SoulSmart, we have acquired and collected many templates and examples. We have recorded trainings and webinars, different sample checklists, sample policies, all of that. On to the next slide. So I'm really excited to be talking to all of you as a group. I spend a lot of time talking kind of to individual communities who want to participate in the program, but increasingly we're also talking to regional organizations about how we can all work collectively across the region. At the end of the day, individual communities may be designated, but together, when we can advance SoulSmart across the region, we can build stronger regional markets. Really, solar is regional. Folks who are working on workforce and companies that are building solar are working regionally. We can tackle regional challenges when we work together. We can accelerate the transfer of best practices and share what's working or what's not. And we can create a friendly spirit of collaboration and competition when we work across a region. So I'm going to give you 3 examples, hoping to maybe inspire something, just share what's working in some other places, and maybe most importantly, show we are very adaptable. So we are happy to think about what this could look like in working with MWCOG, working in the region, or maybe a portion of the region. So these examples, again, provided for some inspiration and also just to show how we can adapt our ways. So the first example coming from North Central Texas, we are partnered with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. They themselves are designated bronze, and they wanted a cohort approach. So a group of communities want to do SoulSmart. We created a 5-month schedule. They have monthly meetings and homework in between. And at the end of the 5-month program, all of the communities will receive their SoulSmart designation. They're coming in at different levels. Some are for bronze, some are for gold. And the program can be adapted and serve all of them together. Keeps them kind of on a defined timeline. And again, really has allowed them to share their experiences, talk about what they're interested in, what they're working on, exchange those materials that they've developed. And then there's some supplemental one-on-one assistance kind of outside of those cohort sessions. So that's example 1. If you go to example 2, we'll come a little bit closer to home. So we have been working with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. Again, they themselves got designated in 2020. We have been working with them actually, I think, more than 6 years. And over that time, we now have more than 20 designated towns and counties across the region. So they've done a series of different concerted outreach efforts and continued to bring communities into the program. They also are continuing to offer ongoing training opportunities. So as those communities have gone through the SoulSmart process, we continue to engage and re-engage with them by offering different training programs and inviting them back to continue to work on this together. And then I wanted to point out here, a unique thing was DVRPC accessed their SoulSmart technical assistance, asking us to help think about opportunities for joint solar procurement. And at the end of the day, so we did some study and helped them understand what their opportunities might be for procuring solar together, a group of communities. And there's now an effort, I'll put it in the chat in a minute, that you can see that they're moving forward with that and have created a procurement process as a region.
Deb, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but since we do have one more speaker, do you think you could possibly summarize the examples a little more quickly?
Sure. This is the last one. So Metro Madison, Wisconsin, just to say, they just recently got designated, and we also worked with 7 member communities at the same time as a county in the region, 2 of which went for platinum designation. So they just were really working at all levels of government to ensure a collaborative approach that really reinforced each other at every level and was extremely ambitious, again, in going for that platinum level. So those are all my examples. And again, just happy to open the conversation later and hear what might work in this region.
Well, thank you, Deb. And fascinating presentation. I have a bazillion questions, but I'm going to have to ask people to put it in the chat and ask you to answer them afterward. And if you can stay for 10 minutes, that would be great. I have 2 more things before we introduce our final and certainly not least presenter. One is that our next meeting is July 24th. And the other is that we had wanted to do a discussion amongst the 3 programs, a discussion about what we together as a COG committee can do to promote solar, now that you've heard all these great ideas and examples. And so again, because of time, I'm going to ask if you can write that down and send it to Jeff and Maya on staff, and maybe we can bring it back on July 24th, a summary of what everybody's heard, and see if there's program ideas in there that we can talk about. So sorry to do that to everybody, but switching gears. Thank you, Deb, Carrie, and Lauren. No. The first speaker, sorry, Pimentel. So switching for just to another topic that's related, WMATA, Rachel Healy, the director of WMATA's Office of Sustainability, will be talking about their sustainability efforts and their sustainability plan. Thank you, Rachel, for being patient.
No problem.
Yeah,
Great
there's your
material. It's
slides.
very exciting. A lot of the work that's going on, a lot of the sort of opportunities for regional collaboration to support solar sound wonderful. You know, the one reason I work at Metro is because of the sustainability impact that transit has. And it requires regional coordination as well. So I was very excited to hear Deb's presentation and the opportunity that that COG members have to engage in regional support of that program. So I'm honored to talk to you all today about both Metro's sustainability impact and some of the programs that we have running. I'm going to go very quickly because I have 12 minutes. If I can go to the next slide. First, a bit of, you go to the next slide. There, and then next. The regional context. The region has ambitious sustainability goals that many of you represent our regional, state, and partners who have worked really hard to set these ambitious sustainability goals that include increasing walking, biking, and transit, reducing vehicle miles traveled, ensuring safe, reliable, affordable, and mobility and access, investing in transit-oriented communities, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, 8% by 2050. Those are the old goals, new goals updated. These goals simply cannot be met without robust regional transit options, right? So next slide. Transit is the greenest, cheapest, most efficient, and most equitable way to move large numbers of people. It carries us to work, fun, shopping, healthcare, services, to all of life's needs and wants. Our transit network creates a frame the region continues to build on. Some of our highlights for the role of transit are that by 2025, transit will keep 1.2 million cars off the road every day. Those cars all lined up would stretch from DC to Alaska. This also saves billions in avoided road and parking construction costs. So our impact is pretty significant. Further, transit is 20 times safer than driving, avoiding nearly 30 deaths and 2,500 injuries every year in the region. In addition to greenhouse gas reduction benefits, transit avoids an additional 8 metric tons of particulate matter, PM 2.5, from poisoning the air every year. Transit-oriented development has repaid the region's investment in transit many times over. Within a half a mile of metro stations and bus stops, you'll find 60% of the region's population, 2.8 million people, 70% of jobs, 1.7 million jobs, 50% of employers, 134,000 businesses, and metro stations areas hold only 3% of the region's land, but 30% of the property value, 65% of new office development, 40% of jobs, 50% of new multifamily housing, and 25% of new affordable housing. An estimated $3.2 billion in annual property tax revenue is generated for this region by land and buildings near metro stations. That's a lot that's focused on transit. I also want to acknowledge that our partners across the region are making key investments in policy decisions that support metro and drive increased transit ridership as well. So this is such as Montgomery County's abatement districts, DC's rollout of bus lanes, Prince George's County and state of Maryland's activation of the Blue Line corridor, and Arlington's Missing Middle initiative, just to name a few. So this region is really moving forward together to really leverage clean transportation options. I know, next slide. I know so the regional transit ridership picture is of interest to a lot of you, and this slide is for you. One key thing to note is that Metro is providing the highest levels of bus and rail service in our history, and riders are responding by coming back. Yes, ridership patterns have changed post-COVID. For example, there are fewer trips Mondays and Fridays, more trips spread throughout the day versus at peak hours, and higher weekend travel. And we're continuing to see ridership increases across the board. Metro Rail and Metro Bus ridership has shown strong growth in recent weeks, with 7 of our top 10 ridership days since 2020 in April and May. Next slide. Even though transit is already doing a lot of great things for our region, there's a lot more potential for transit that we're not tapping into. We have a lot of transit options, not just Metro, but other regional rail and bus services, and there's just not enough people riding to meet this region's sustainability goals. We need to increase transit mode share. A better, more integrated network can help many people become regular transit riders. And as you know, COG and Metro recently announced the launch of a historic initiative, DMV Moves. This initiative will develop a vision and path forward, including a sustainable funding model for comprehensive regional transit in the DMV. And I think that's of particular interest to CEEPC members. Having been for a long time a non-voting member on the CEEPC board, I understand the values and the targets and the commitments you all have helped shape. And I really admire the work that you do. And I think transit's really important for that. Next slide. I want to drive home that transit and Metro are essential for a healthy, sustainable region. Every transit trip fosters healthy region and prevents greenhouse gas emissions by reducing travel-related carbon emissions. So what does that mean? Well, think about an example, say, when everyone rides in separate cars to an event. This requires a lot of energy, produces pollution, and takes up a lot of road space. When people carpool in a bus or a train together to that same event, they use less energy and create less pollution, which is more efficient. Metro is inherently sustainable, but beyond moving people, transit also promotes equity, environmental stewardship, economic prosperity, and social well-being. Next slide. Next slide. This slide shows just some of the highlights of actions taken and progress we've made over the last decade here at WMATA or Metro. And the examples include Metro's LEAD commitment, transit equity framework, commitment to 100% zero emission bus fleet, and the 10-year strategic plan for joint development. I feel like I'm on like the speed loop of my presentation. Next slide. Trying to get it all in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for keeping me on the agenda. As part of the effort to drive Metro forward, our strategic plan set 3 primary initiative areas in sustainability and several targets to measure our progress. Our board set very aggressive but achievable goals for Metro in the region. And our overarching target is increasing regional greenhouse gas emission displacement. And the remainder of the targets focus on cleaning Metro's operations. They're sort of internally focused. Overall, we can report that environmental sustainability metrics are trending in the right direction. The following slides are going to cover examples of ongoing programs driving change in each initiative area. Next slide. As I mentioned, our key overarching metric is regional emissions avoidance, which helps track our impact on reduced travel emissions in the district, Maryland, and Virginia. Metro is already delivering emissions reductions to the region and its residents. In fiscal 2023 alone, Metro prevented 78,000 metric tons of emissions. That's about the same amount as the carbon absorbed by a forest about twice the size of Washington, D.C., or the emissions from about 200 million miles driven by an average gasoline-powered passenger vehicle. And as Metro's ridership has been returning, our positive emissions reduction impact has been growing. Next slide. Next slide, there. Our emissions avoidance impact increases both when we provide service that drives increased ridership and when we become more efficient in our operations. So Metro has taken on a target to decarbonize by 2050. And some of the factors that influence performance here include Metro's facility operations, equipment and infrastructure, our vehicle propulsion systems, and energy supply sources. And our carbon emissions per mile have been decreasing for nearly a decade. We've been working very hard on pushing this. Much of our progress to date results from both adopting clean energy sources, but as well as investing in energy efficiency with associated cost savings. Some of the energy efficient equipment and practices examples are, thorough retrofit to LED lighting, escalator and elevator upgrades, chiller upgrades, and updated and increased regenerative braking settings on our trains. In the future, we've got rail automation, energy storage, aluminum lightweighted 8000 series trains, and our transition to zero emission vehicles in our bus fleet. So getting to the 2050 target will require continued investment in energy efficiency, transitioning our fleets to clean fuels, and cleaning our electricity supply. Next, thank you. Metro has a goal to reach 100% clean electricity by 2033. We've already begun this transition. And as of fiscal 2023, we've reached 35% renewable electricity, meaning your ride is getting cleaner. We use a lot of electricity to provide efficient transit service to the region, almost 1 billion kilowatt hours a year. Because we're so big, the way we engage in the energy market matters. We've been doing so strategically to control costs and support the region's clean energy transition. One example of how we are engaging in the market is the way over the past couple of years we've worked with GSA to secure energy contracts in Maryland and DC. By partnering with the GSA, we're able to secure favorable pricing, lower administrative costs, and meet renewable energy requirements. Next slide. Our approach to 100% clean electricity is multi-pronged. You can see on the left the example we just talked about, the partnership with GSA, combining renewable energy credits with supply contracts. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see investing in on-site renewable to directly power our operations, examples being at Bladensburg Northern and Cinderbed bus garages. And in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the clean energy market continues to change rapidly. We will continue to look for opportunities as they arise. Next. Metro's also leveraging its assets to deliver clean energy to the region. Our solar carport program utilized an innovative leaf structure to provide 10 megawatts of community solar, annual revenue to Metro, and station improvements to customers. The 11 acres of solar panels, that's equivalent to 8 football fields, collectively generate enough clean electricity to power over 1,000 homes annually, making it one of the largest community solar projects in the Mid-Atlantic. Next. We also have goals to convert our entire bus fleet to zero emissions vehicles by 2042. Our first 2 BEVs are now serving Route W4 from Anacostia to Deanwood, and 10 more battery electric buses begin arriving this year. Transition planning for 100% zero emission non-revenue and paratransit service vehicles by 2050 is also underway. Next slide. Our second initiative is optimizing natural resource stewardship. And you can see here we partnered successfully with Anacostia Watershed Society to plant 385 trees at 4 of our Metro rail stations, improving customer experience and providing health and environmental benefits. We are also looking at additional opportunities, including those that have been opened up by the USDA Urban and Community Forest Grant. Next. Really going fast. Sorry, you all already over. By utilizing LEED in all new construction and substantial rehabilitation projects, Metro has seen construction waste diversion rates of 80 to 90% in our recent projects. Yeah. Sorry. Reacting to who I can see, right? Thank you. And then next, our third initiative is modernizing our infrastructure and equipment to meet today's sustainability and climate resiliency challenges, right? So we're using green certifications like LEED to help build for this future by adopting energy and cost-saving technologies, supporting innovation, and providing healthy workspaces, as well as being a good neighbor to our communities. For example, by prioritizing energy-saving technologies, Metro's L'Enfant headquarters achieved a perfect score on the Energy Star scale and has a 35% lower energy cost and produces 86% less greenhouse gas emissions than similar modern non-LEED buildings. Next. Metro is committed to resource efficiency, including manage our water intensity. We're investing in modern equipment to decrease water consumption, including chiller replacements and remote monitoring systems at rail stations, very large chillers for our rail stations, high efficiency equipment at our offices, rail yards, and bus garages, and bus water reuse at bus garages. We even have reclaimed rainwater bus washes. So very focused on that as well. And then next, finally, Metro also promotes sustainable innovation and best practice adoption through our Sustainability Challenge program that recognizes employees for their leadership in adopting new practices. This past April, we celebrated the work of almost 80 employees from nearly every department across Metro. This year's awards include multimodal bus stop guidelines that we worked with our jurisdictions on, our MTPD crisis intervention team, and climate sustainability transition bonds that recognize transit's value as a sustainability and climate solution. So those are all really great. And our sustainability lab also supports innovation through identifying, testing new technologies and practices for agency-wide rollout. We're currently testing battery-powered track maintenance equipment and battery electric leaf blowers for our grounds maintenance crews. So, and that's information we can certainly share with anybody who's interested in what we're moving forward there. Next slide, please. Metro will continue to commit staff and resources to making our own operations more efficient and sustainable. But within the context of these programs and exciting projects, do not forget that our biggest impact in the region is through the service that we provide. And that getting more people to take Metro is one of the most effective ways to leverage existing investments and support regional transformation. There are several opportunities to drive regional sustainability together. Next slide. These opportunities include regional partnership, prioritizing transit, walking, and biking, reduces vehicle miles traveled, and boosts regional benefits. Some of the examples of this are transit-oriented development, bus priority, and networks of bike ped paths and transfer connection hubs. Provision of quality service. Frequent, reliable service optimizes existing transit investments. Some examples of this are the better bus network redesign, all day, all week frequent bus and rail service. And modernization. Transitioning to cleaner fuels and enhancing energy and cost efficiency. Examples of this are 8000 series rail cars that have been modernized and lightweighted, automated operations, on-site solar, and our resiliency projects. In Metro, the region has both an engaged partner and a proven tool that has the capacity to help the region meet its carbon reduction and sustainability goals. And I think that we can actually leverage properly, do this together and really make a difference working together. And that's one of the reasons my job's one of the most exciting jobs in the region. So happy to be able to present this to you all. Look forward. I see there were some questions in the comments. Love to follow up with folks.
Rachel, thank you very much. That was fascinating. And there are a bunch of questions in the chat. So if we can leave the chat open for a little bit to give Rachel a chance to see what the questions are, and we'll let the staff figure out how you want to respond to individuals or perhaps to send all the info out to everybody. Let's let you guys work that out. So before we adjourn, just let me thank all the speakers one more time. Great information. Look for a note from Jeff and Maya about how to continue the solar discussion, because we won't get to it today, obviously. And the next meeting is the next full meeting is July 24th. It is virtual. It is at 10 o'clock. And having said all that, I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned, but we will leave this open for just a few moments for people who want to ask solar questions. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, Rachel, great presentation. I'm reading the chat here. All of the presentations were fascinating.